Okay, we're going to do our final topic here on sexual differentiation. We're going to talk about a couple things that are out of the norm or what we would not expect. There are a number of different places where chromosomal, gonadal, external genitalia, fetal sex, adult sex do not always agree. So we're going to get into hermaphrodism to start. So true hermaphrodism would be a combination of tissue of both sexes. This really doesn't happen in humans. The images I have here are showing us a number of bird and insect models where we actually do see a combination of both sexes. So you would need to have something like an ovotestis, something that has seminiferous tubules and ovarian follicles. Would that happen? Again, it doesn't really quite happen in humans. Okay. The gynandromorph is what we see in the wild. Gyn referring to anything female, andro referring to man forming, so female and male put together, morph talking about morphology or the outward appearance. So we've got this both male and female presentation. And these animals are split right down the middle. Okay. On one side we're male, on the other side we're female. And you can really see species that have obvious markings or sexual dimorphisms, where the male is maybe one color like the red cardinal, and the female is more of a gray-looking bird. Okay, so something has gone on during development that half of the embryo has developed male and the other half is female. What we would actually see in humans is more of a pseudo-hermaphrodism, where the gonadal sex and the chromosomal sex agree, so XY male and also testes, but outwardly appearing, the external genitalia and other features might appear female. And that's exactly what happens in androgen insensitivity syndrome. So let's take a look at that. Someone that has androgen insensitivity, XY male, testes make testosterone, but they have no receptors for testosterone and other androgens. So the body is essentially blind to the testosterone. That testosterone will influence the Müllerian duct to regress. So internally, they're going to have Wolffian ducts, and they'll have the male testes, but the external structures actually require the instruction there, right? So they can't, there's no receptors. They're not going to be able to differentiate in that way. So what's left was something that looks very female from the outside. They will have testes, they'll just remain undescended. They'll be up in the body cavity where you expect to find ovaries. A comparable but opposite problem here is congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So this is afflicting females. Genetically, the person is female. However, their adrenal glands are producing an abnormal amount of steroid hormones. Okay, so the adrenal glands actually sit right on top of the kidneys, and they're responsible for producing lots of our steroid hormones, our stress hormones like cortisol, and then also in females, they become a significant source of testosterone because females have testosterone too, right? We just don't make it in our testes because we don't have any, right? So we need another source. So what happens is that adrenal gland undergoes hyperplasia, hyper meaning many, plasia meaning cell number. So these adrenal glands grow to an abnormally large size, and they start pumping out lots of steroid hormones, including testosterone. That is going to masculinize the body. So you'll see facial hair growth, muscle mass that appears very male. Depending on when that adrenal gland underwent that change, we could see a wide variety of external features. For the person pictured, this probably happened very early on because they look very fully masculinized. let's take a look at the genital structures, and this is where we can see the variety. So depending on when the hyperplasia took place, it might influence those external genital structures to different degrees. So these are all masculinized female genitalia. We can see the clitoris is a lot larger here, and we can see, we can still see two labia. They're not completely fused. Unlike this image looking below, that looks like a scrotum. Those two labia are completely fused together. Okay? And then looking at some of these other images, some of these structures look a lot more phallic-like. So these individuals, XX, they're still going to have a uterus and ovaries, but unlike the person with androgen insensitivity syndrome, which is likely raised female and doesn't know maybe till a later age that they have AIS, this is usually diagnosed on the spot because the genitals don't look 100% male or 100% female. So this is usually at birth diagnosed. Okay, and I'll bring you to one more, huevodosis. This is one more interesting phenomenon. This translates to penis at 12. We'll talk about what that means. There are a couple different communities that possess this genetic defect. What happens here is they have a 5-alpha reductase deficiency, which means they lack the capacity to convert one type of testosterone into a second type of testosterone, dihydrotestosterone. It turns out that dihydrotestosterone is actually really what is chiefly responsible for creating the external structures like the penis, the scrotum, the prostate. The internal structures like the ductwork from the Wolffian ducts and the testes, those are a lot more responsive to testosterone. So those structures are going to fully form, but the testes won't descend. Because it's a genetic defect of the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, it's going to be in certain populations. And there's one in the Dominican, and that's where it gets its name. Huevodosis in the native tongue translates to penis at 12. There is also another community in Greece, and this was actually, I read the book, the name is escaping me, but it was on Oprah's book club, and it's about this person of Greek descent that has this 5-alpha reductase deficiency, and they go through the experience of, parts developing and changing at puberty, much more than the average person going through puberty. So what's going on with them again is they present their external sex generally looks female until 12. Then when we get that rush of puberty hormones, we'll take a look and see what happens here. Okay, these structures are going to change considerably. So here's normal male development, we're familiar with that, and with huevodosis. So the clitoris will start to increase in size. This would happen with anyone taking increased amounts of testosterone. That clitoris is going to grow. And the testes are going to start to descend. Right? They'll move into the area of the labia majora. And the labia can even fuse a bit to form a scrotum. Okay. Sperm production is possible. This person is fertile. However, they have a little bit of a problem with reproduction if we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. If we're looking at the normal route of formation here of the urethra within the penis, right? This creates a situation where the ejaculate is going to leave the penis, and that's going to be able to enter the vagina, and we'll be able to do fertilization there with sperm being released. Whenever a person with huevodosis ejaculates, right, the fluid's moving in the wrong direction. Okay, so even if you were having sexual intercourse using the phallus, that's not going to get the semen moving in the right direction. fathering a child is still possible, but you'll just have to figure out how to move those cells into the right place. So you'll need a little bit of help from science. What's interesting as well is this person still will retain the blind vaginal pouch. It's not going anywhere. They didn't have a Mullerian duct to make the top of the vagina and the bottom of the uterus, but that structure is still there. So a couple interesting phenomenons here with a little bit of disagreement between chromosomal sex, fetal sex, gonadal sex, hormonal sex. This is the end of the material for your first exam, so good luck.